this first little video, we're just going to talk about the layout of the home page. This is the home page. We know it's the home page because it has the word home written up in the top left hand corner there. And to be quite honest, the bulk of the information we need is available from this actual screen. If we look here, we have the information for player 1, and here we have the information for player 2. Now don't forget, on the PA5X, unlike the PA4X, the players are not only for song information, that's MIDI files or MP3 files. This is now where we load styles, be it factory styles or user styles. And we can fade from one of the players to the other. And if you notice, the color scheme changes. So actually in your line of sight all the time, you can actually see which player you're on. Now, in a future video, we'll show you how you can do a couple of brilliant things by putting two styles together. But for now, let's just concentrate on the information that we get from one of the player screens. So first of all, we can see it's active because it's lit. We can see the name of the style that's there. We can see the time signature of that style. In this case, it's 4/4. We can see the tempo in beats per minute. We can also see the metronome counter. So as we start to play the style, there we go. We can actually see it counting out the beats there. We can also see which variation is currently selected. Now, of course, we can look down here at the lights and we can see it's variation 1, but it is nice to have that information to hand on the screen. Worth mentioning, right at the top of the screen here, along the same little bar as the word home, we have sharp and flat 0. That's transpose information. So at the moment, we've got no transpose on. So we can see then from the actual keyboard, the little picture of the keyboard, then it says 0. That is the upper octave information. So if I alter the upper octave, you can see +1, +2, or down into minus. So you can see what octave you've got the upper voices set at. The transpose, by the way, of course, if you go up +1, +2, +3, and you can obviously go into minus. To reset either of these functions, simply press both of the buttons together and it will take it back to 0. Name of the chord here, and we've got a real chord here, B-7 with a flattened fifth. That will display the last played recognized chord. So obviously if we change chords here, we can see that changing in the screen. The next little line underneath, that's where we've got information for the pads, and that coincides with these 4 buttons here. Pads can be drum patterns, percussive hits, it can be guitar strums, be it nylon guitar strums, acoustic guitar strums, it can be guitar arpeggios, it could be piano patterns, vamping patterns, it could be piano arpeggios. There is a whole plethora of different effects and musical phrases in there. Now, the great thing about that is they will tie in with the style and they will link with the tempo of the style as well. You will notice a little padlock at the end there, and we'll see that a little bit later when we see the 4 keyboard sets. The padlock does exactly what it suggests it's going to do. If you've got a set of pads here that you really like, then lock them into place. The little padlock goes a sort of orangey pink colour, just to indicate that those 4 pads are now locked. So even if we go on to a different setting, we can retain those pads. May be useful if you time and time again are using the same pads, then it might be worth you just lock those into place. Now we come to this bigger bit of the screen here. Now that's telling us the name of the current keyboard set library that is selected. And it happens to coincide with what's in keyboard set 1. So if I was to change to the next one, which says synth lead, we can see it bigger there because it's picking up this synth lead keyboard set library. Now, in another video, I'm going to talk about the difference, well, and explain what a keyboard set library is and the difference between that and the individual sounds, which you will see on the screen in a second. There's some more information we can find out. Let's go to another keyboard set library. I'm going to load the Austrian Grand, and I've done this for a reason. I know just through experience that Austrian Grand is made up of 2 sounds, but at the moment I can't see which 2 sounds it is. But I know it's 2 sounds because if we look in this right hand part of that particular pane of the window, we can see highlighted upper 1 and upper 2. Whereas upper 3 and lower are greyed out, so they're not being used, so upper 1 and upper 2. We'll come to how we see what those 2 voices are in just a second. There is another little picture of a keyboard below there. The fact that it's all in one perfect line tells me immediately there is no split in place on this keyboard set library. If I was to put the split button on, look what happens to the image of the keyboard. It actually splits in 2, and we know just by looking at that home page that we've got the split function on. Take that back off for a second. The next little line, that gives us the 4 keyboard set libraries, or let's call them registrations, sound settings, whatever you want to call them. They are the 4 that were selected automatically by the rhythm that's on there. So we've got electric piano, synth leads, sax ensemble and brass, and electric grand pad. Now, let me just go in and choose a totally different rhythm. I'll choose jazz quartet. If we press exit, which will always take us back to the home page, now you see we have 4 totally different sounds because these are the sounds that have come up as a preset with that particular rhythm there. Now, let's go back to our Austrian Grand again for a second. Oh, I should have just mentioned again, as with the pads, there's the padlock. So if I really want to keep those sounds, but I'd like to play them with a different rhythm other than jazz quartet, then what we do is we put the padlock on. Now when we go and choose a different rhythm, let's choose Sweet Bossa Nova, I've still got my same set of sounds. So that's a really useful feature. So I'm going to take the padlock back off there. I said we would load Austrian Grand. There's the exit button again, just to see how we find out what those 2 sounds are. Well, at the moment, if you look, we've got some tabs down the bottom. We're only going to look at 2 of them at the moment. We're on main at the moment, and that is the screen we're going to get. But if we go to the next tab, keys, now this may be more of a familiar screen to many of you. So if you've got PA700, PA1000 or PA5X, you'll be familiar with it showing the individual sounds for each section. Actually, on the those keyboards we just mentioned, the sounds stack down on the right hand side of the screen, but now they run across the center of the screen. So we can see again, as we saw before, upper 1 and upper 2 on those little lines on the main screen. Let's just go back and show you there. They were illuminated, exactly the same here. So upper 1, upper 2, upper 3 and lower grayed out. So that's in keeping with the information we saw before. But now we can see the individual sounds for each section. So I hope you see there, and in other videos we're going to cover these tabs and we're going to look at how we change these sounds and why they are different to the voices labelled here in the keyboard set library, because they say piano, electric piano, organ, and that's where a lot of people go and just select sounds and they think that's all the sounds the instrument's got. So we'll be covering that in a later video, but there's just a brief tour of the home screen.